Alright, so we're talking about supply. Right here we got a supply survey. Remember, a survey is just the numbers that we kind of gather. Most of the time when we talk about supply, it has to do with the supply of products. Here, this example is the supply of laborers or people that's actually going to work. So what this guy did was take a fake poll on who would work for a certain amount of money. So they picked a fake job and they asked people, would you be willing to work for $8 an hour? One person said they would do the job for $8 an hour. Would it take $10? And two people said that. Who would work for $18 on this job? So if you were only willing to do this job for $18, two people said that they would be willing to do it. Now, if you're going to do the job for $8, if they offer you $18, obviously they're going to take the job. And as you can see, that's what actual supply is. So there's only one person that would do it for $8. There's three people that would do the job for $10. Because if you're going to work for $8, you obviously would work for $10. So when we talk about actual supply, this is how they figure it out. If you're going to supply a certain amount of products, in this case, people willing to work, supplying labor, actual supply is the way that we gather the numbers and use the totals. And here what we do, we take the supply survey and we just kind of put it in a nice neat little graph here. At $8, one person is willing to do it. At $10, three people, 12, 6, and so forth. And then we take the supply survey and we turn it into a supply curve. And as you can see, it's the same slant that we have for all supply curves. It's going to start out small and then get bigger if the price is going to increase. Because remember, we're on the supply side this time. If you can make $18 an hour, more people are willing to work that job for $18. If you're only going to get paid $8, less people are going to work. So your supply of workers is going to be small. We could take these numbers and switch them around and make them into products. If I can make $18 on a pair of socks, $18 on a glass of lemonade, then more people, I'm going to make more of those things so that more people will buy them. Now, we'll eventually, get into other factors, but if we're just talking about price, if I can make $18 on a pair of socks or a glass of lemonade, I'm going to make as many of them as they can. I'm going to make 10 of them, sell those every day, and make $180. If I'm just making $8 for a pair of socks, I don't want to spend my time on that, because I'm not making as much money. Alright, here's where your note starts. The law of supplies. Basically, there's three things that we're going to try to figure out today as you watch this video and you fill out these notes. The first thing is the knowledge of this. We want to be able to understand the relationship between price and quantity supplied. So we want to be able to track it on a survey and then graph it out on a curve. We want to be able to figure out how these things work together. And as you can see, and as we'll go through this, the curve is always the same shape. It starts out small, it gets bigger as it goes out. Then we're going to go on to why curves will shift. We did demand shifts earlier, now we're doing supply shifts. So it does shift both to the right and to the left like the demand did, but this time we are going to have different reasons for that. It'll be different factors that shift supply. And then the last thing we're going to do on this is we're going to try to draw the shifts in our own supply curves. We are going to have the skill that we're going to have on this is we'll gather the data, we'll put it in a supply survey, and then we'll take that data and we will shift it into a supply curve, and then depending on the scenario, that curve will shift one way or the other. Alright, hopefully you filled out those first three, the knowledge, the reasoning, and the skills on your notes. If not, you can always click back and hit pause so you can get all that written down. Alright, definition of supply. If all things are equal, producers will supply more of a product as its price increases and less of a product as its price decreases. So kind of let y'all get that down. If all things are equal, and most of the time when we first look at these is just going to be price. If the price goes higher, we're going to make more of those, and we just assume that we're going to sell everything we make right now. Eventually we'll put supply and demand together and kind of find that magic point. But right now we're just looking at supply. So if I can make more money on a product, I'm going to make and produce as many of those as I can so that I can make the biggest profit that I possibly can. So higher prices, and this is the number one on your note, higher prices are an incentive for suppliers. If I can sell soccer cleats for $120, I'm going to make as many of them as I can because that's what I will make the most money off of. Of all the products that I produce, I make the most off soccer cleats, so I'm going to make as many of those as I can, spend all my time. And this goes back to kind of that production possibility curves. Remember we did the hashtags and the airplanes. You know, if you have 10 minutes of day to work and you can spend it making, you know, hashtags and airplanes, you kind of have to figure out what's the best combination. Should I do 3 minutes worth of hashtags and 7 minutes worth of airplanes? It's the same thing for a normal producer, a company that produces soccer shoes. If they can sell these black Adidas shoes for $120, make as many of you can. We assume that we're going to sell them all. And just opposite of that is lower prices for the same item will deter suppliers. So once these shoes are out for a while, you know, once they, you know, get bad reputation, once leather goes up in price, there's all different kind of things that you know can you know, deter them from making these. But right now, if it's a lower price, I'm going to make less of these. If I can only sell these for $90 now, then maybe there's another pair that I can sell for more. Maybe the all white pair sells for $120. The all gold pair sells for, you know, $150. So lower prices for the exact same item will deter suppliers. If I'm not going to make as much money on this product, then I am going to shift and move to something else. I don't want to waste my time making products that aren't going to make me the maximum amount of dollars, because when it comes to it, this is business. I'm trying to make as much money as possible. Alright, there's two ways that supply can change, and it's kind of the same thing as demand, if you remember. The first is a change in quantity supplied, and this is just a change along the supply curve. We're just going to shift up the line. If for whatever reason we decide to make a lesser amount of product or a larger amount of product, then it's going to shift along the curve. So for example, if I'm a lemonade salesman and I decide for the price of lemonade it's going to change from $1 to $2. I'm a business, I think that I can, you know, make more money at $2, but something's got to change on here. And basically all I'm doing is shifting up that line. So at $1 I'm going to sell 20 glasses of lemonade. At $2 I'm going to sell $40 of lemonade. So it just shifts right up it. The supply line does not shift to the right or to the left. We just change the quantity that I am supplying. So at $2 there's going to be 40 glasses of lemonades that I produce. Because I can make more money, because I can make $2, I'm going to make more glasses of lemonade. At $1 I'm only going to produce 20 glasses because I'm not making as much money. Remember, I assume that I'm going to sell all of these, so I could shift this even more. If I thought I could make $3 on a glass of lemonade, I would spend more time and buy more lemons and you know, sugar and cups and all the things I needed, and I would be able to sell 60 glasses of lemonade. So remember, we assume that we are going to sell all of these things. So if I can get $2 a glass, I'm going to take the time to make 40 glasses of lemonade because obviously I'm making more money. $20, 20 glasses times $1, I'm making $20. $40 times $2 is $80. So in this scenario, by shifting the price up, it's going to be more money for me, $80 compared to $20. Remember, we assume that we're going to sell everything that we make. We haven't put the demand line on this graph yet. Now, the other way that supply can change is a change in actual supply. This is where the line is going to start shifting. If something happens to the price of lemonade, the price of sugar, it turns out that lemonade cures cancer, it makes you lose weight, it makes you smarter, it makes you handsomer, it gives you back pimples, something that's going to affect the sale of lemonade, it's going to shift the entire supply either left or right. For examples, lemons might be in season, so lemonade can be produced easily and cheaper. If lemons are just growing on trees, like nothing, it's going to be cheaper. I can buy more lemons for the same amount of price. So if this is true, if I can get more lemons for the same price, the supply of lemons has increased without me having to spend more money. Therefore, I can make more lemonade, and the supply is going to shift over. So now, if I'm charging $1 a glass, I've been able to produce or supply more glasses of lemonade. So the supply has gone up. I take in consideration how much it costs to make, how much I have to pay my employees, and it's just that lemons are cheaper now, so I can make more lemonade because I can buy more lemons. And so now at $1 a glass, instead of 20 glasses, I can now charge the same amount, and it looks like 35. So if it's something good that happens, lemons are cheaper, it's going to shift the line to the right. If a hurricane comes through Florida and knocks out all the lemon trees, that's something bad. It's going to shift all the the line to the left, because now lemons are harder to find, they're going to be more expensive. Alright, on your notes, here we go. You draw the graph. You should be on the back side. There's a label or a graph that's labeled increase in supply. So basically here we're just drawing a line that increases that supply. So take a second here, draw the arrow showing which way it goes, and then draw the new line. Alright, hopefully it went this way. Something good happened, you can get more lemons more cheaply, and the line shifts that way. Now, on your notes there's a graph labeled decrease in supply. So draw a decrease in the supply on that graph. So let's say that zombies attack your lemon farm and they suck the juice out of lemons, and it makes them faster so they can chase you more. Something bad happens and there's less lemons and they're more expensive. Where is that line going to shift? Now it costs you more money and you don't get as many lemons. So that line shifts to the left. And you have a new supply line. Notice we call these S1, they just use S, and then the second line you draw is S2, and then if you put that arrow on there, it just kind of helps out to show which way the line is shifting. And so if it shifts to the right, we know something good happened. If it shifts to the left, we know something bad happened. Alright, there's going to be different things that cause an increase in supply. These are good things that are going to happen. Positive things, so that you, the producer, you, the lemonade salesman, are going to have good things happen for you, and will shift that line to the right. The first one is the cost of production decreases. So the materials you need to make your product are going to cost less. So if you're a lemonade salesman, sugar's on sale, cups are on sale, lemons are on sale, anything else you might need, straws are on sale. So the products that you make are going to be made more easily and more cheaply because the cost of production decreases. So depending on what you're making, if it's a food product, then the ingredients are going to be cheaper. If you're building a car, metal goes on sale. Tires are cheaper, something like that. This means that it costs less to make the item. Materials, wages, operating costs are some things that might get cheaper. The next one is technology improves. If you're a lemonade salesman and you can have robots sell your lemonade instead of having to pay people to stand out on the corner and sell your lemonade at their lemonade stand, then that's better. If you yourself buy a lemon juicer, something that squeezes the lemons for you faster, then you can make more lemonade more cheaply, more quickly, and that saves you. So new computers, new software, new machinery, new technology, whatever that might be. And it might just be, instead of mixing lemonade by hand, you buy a blender. Instead of you building a car by hand, you have robots that do some of the work for you. So it doesn't have to be anything great. Instead of ripping the lemons in half by hand, if you buy a knife, that's even technology that improves and makes you faster with your job and what you're producing. The next things is sellers expect good things in the future. An economy that is expanding is always a good sign for suppliers. New homes are an indicator of good things in the future. If people are buying homes, it means they think they're going to have a job for the next 10, 20, 30 years, because that's usually how long it takes to pay off a house. So once you get set, once you think you're going to have money over the next couple decades, then you'll probably buy a house, and then then everything else that goes with that house. So a bunch of people buy houses in your neighborhood. That's probably a good place to set up and start selling lemonade, because you're going to have people there. You're going to have guys out in their yards mowing and doing yard work, and they're going to need something cold to drink. So sellers expect good things in the future. The economy looks good. You think you're going to have a good job, good paycheck, and so you're more willing to buy things. So if you're a supplier, a store owner, a lemonade stand, then that's good news for you. More sellers increase the market. This means that a new business is entering the market, or a business already in the market is opening new facilities. If you open new lemonade stands, then the supply of lemonade increases. If you make so much money on your street, then you have your cousin, a couple streets over, open a lemonade stand as well. The supply increases, and all those things go up for you. Opportunities in different markets are bad. If related markets are doing poorly, suppliers will focus more attention on the current market. So we all know soft drinks are bad for you. All the chemicals and sugar that they put in soft drinks. We know that lemonade is probably going to be healthier for you. So if it turns out that soft drinks are even worse than what we thought, then that would make lemonade more popular, and that would be good, and we would increase the supply. It also increases demand as well, but remember, we're talking about the business owner. We're the suppliers in this. So if that happens, if other markets are doing poorly, suppliers will focus on the current market. So if you're a drink salesman and you sell multiple drinks, you sell Coke and lemonade and Kool-Aid and iced tea, if it turns out that your Coke is giving kids cancer and rotting their teeth, then you're going to stop selling Coke, and you're going to increase in lemonade. This kind of goes back to those production possibility curves. Spend less time on Coke, spend more time on lemonade, because because the market for lemonade is good, the market for Coke is bad. And then the other thing is favorable natural events. If it's sunny, then that is good and lemons grow better. If it's hot outside, that's good for lemonade salesmen, and so that would help and increase the supply. Such events might include plenty of sunshine and rain for crops, so it works with our lemons, or restoration of peace in a war zone. So if a war breaks out in Angleton, that's probably not a good place to sell lemonade. It would be hard to dodge missiles and cannonballs and samurai warriors. And then when all those people go away and the war's over, then favorable conditions and we would sell more lemonade. Now, there's also decreases in supply. There are 6 factors that will cause supply to decrease, and basically these are the exact opposite of the ones up above. So, cost of production increases. If the price of your goods goes up, the ingredients for your lemonade, the metal for your cars, the wood for your furniture you're building, if those things go up, it's more expensive to make your product. You don't have money. You only have a certain amount of money. Remember, that concept of scarcity says we have limited amount of money, and so you have to choose what you're going to spend that money on. So if the cost of production increases, you just can't make as much stuff and the supply goes down. Your technology becomes outdated. If your computer software is outdated, if all you have is a hand crank to mix your lemonade, and the guy up the street has a super turbocharged diesel engine power lemonade mixer, then he's going to be able to outmake you, make more stuff than you. So if your technology is outdated, you won't be able to keep up with other suppliers, and definitely that's bad for you. Sellers expect bad things in the future. If we know something is bad going to happen, if the economy is shrinking, foreclosures on homes are an indicator of bad things, then it's bad for the market. Other products are going to do better. Other things are going to come into play, and it will decrease the supply that you're able to produce. Sellers are going to leave the market. So if people are falling behind, if people are closing their businesses down, there's less of that product down. If the market for lemonade goes down, you can't pay your cousin a couple streets over to work for you anymore, so you've got to shut down. If you only have 1 lemonade stand going instead of 2, obviously there's going to be less supply out there. Opportunities in different markets are good. Let's say it turns out that iced tea cures cancer. You're going to spend more time making iced tea than you are lemonade. So if it's better in another market that's still kind of similar, you're going to spend your time to go in that sort of market. And then unfavorable natural events. So if it's drought, crops aren't going to grow, things are going to be more expensive, not as many lemons are produced, the lemons aren't as juicy, then you can't make as much lemonade. If a war breaks out, if there's an earthquake, riots, zombie apocalypse, something bad happens, then obviously you won't be able to make as much lemonade. Your supply obviously goes down. Alright, when the supply curve shifts, it affects quantity and price. Complete the table on your notes. So right down there at the bottom, I'm just reading the directions off. By deciding whether quantity and price increase or decrease for each scenario. Use the graphs to help you out here. So, alright, we're now down on that little bottom table, very end. We're almost done here. Stick with me. Alright, the effects of shifting supply. When the supply curve shifts, it affects quantity and price. Complete the table by deciding whether quantity and price increase or decrease for each scenario. So I'll give you here just a second. Increase in supply. What does that affect on the quantity? What does that affect on the price? If there's a decrease in supply, what is the effect on quantity? what is the effect on price? Does it go up? Does it go down? Alright, so we'll use the graphs to help us out here. So it says draw the graphs. We kind of, if you look right above this at the increase in supply and decrease in supply graphs on the left side of your paper, you kind of already know what these things are going to do. An increase in supply is going to shift that line to the right. So the quantity goes up. If we look at the same quantity, though, the price goes down. When there's a decrease in supply, it shifts to the left, so the effect on quantity goes down, and the effect goes up. So, and you can pick a number, anywhere on the increase in supply. If we look at the quantity, if we look at 40 glasses of lemonade, our original line was at the $2 mark. When we drag down and look at it, when there's an increase in supply, it was at $2, now it's closer to $1, so the price goes down. If we look at the decrease chart, the one on the right, decrease in supply, we can pick at 30 glasses of lemonade, we were able to sell it at $1.50. We continue on that line up. Now, since the line shifted at 30 glasses, it's $2.50. So when there's an increase in supply, when there's lots of stuff out there, the price is going to drop. When there's a decrease in supply and there's not very much of a product out there, then the price is going to increase. Alright, here's your assignment. On another sheet of paper, blank sheet of paper, notebook paper. If you need some, I got some up there on the shelves. You know where it's at. Pick a product, any product you want, as long as it's school appropriate and legal in the state of Texas. The one I've been talking about the whole time is lemonade. I chose lemonade. You can pick anything else. You are going to, basically come up with 12 statements. 6 factors that would increase your supply, 6 factors that would decrease your supply. And with each statement, you are going to draw a graph of how that line shifts. You don't need to put numbers on it or anything like that. Just draw the Y and X axis, draw a S1 line, draw an S2 line with your arrow across. So for the first factor that would increase is the cost of production decreases. So my statement number 1 is the cost of production decrease would be lemons are cheaper because it was extra sunny in Florida this year, because there was extra rain in Florida this year, because I found coupons on the internet for lemons. Any reason that lemons would be cheaper would increase the supply. So my normal supply would be the S line, and because lemons are cheaper, it shifts it to the right. And so that works out good for me here. Now, here's a little trick. Once you do the shifting line to the right, the next 5 in a row, your graphs will look the exact same. If something good happens, then it shifts the line to the right. Once you get to 6 factors that would decrease, all your lines are going to shift to the left. So the paper that you are going to turn into me, the paper that I will take a grade on, is 12 statements, 6 factors that would increase, where you have the line shifting to the right, with 6 graphs, so 6 statements and 6 graphs, and then you'll have 6 factors that decrease, which are basically the opposite of what you just did, and you will draw 6 graphs that look the exact same, of the line shifting to the left this time. So 12 statements total, 12 graphs total. That's the paper that you'll turn into me. If you have any questions, let me know. Hopefully this worked out for you okay. Thanks for taking the time to listen.